welcome to What's Up Ocala. I'm your host, Andrew Praver, and today I am going to introduce you to someone that's going to answer all of your questions regarding insurance. So, can you please tell everyone who you are, where you work, and how to get in touch with you?
Hi, my name is Macy McConnell. I work for Brown & Brown Insurance Services. The way to get in contact with me best is going to be 352-387-4252.
Wonderful. Okay, so Brown & Brown is a company that I have been working with for years. They have a fantastic reputation here in Marion County, and you guys have always gone above and beyond for my customers. So obviously, if I wanted to have somebody on here to discuss insurance, you guys are the ones to call, right?
Yes, we are actually number one in Florida.
Really?
We are the number one agency in Florida.
Okay, and you guys handle all sorts of stuff. You even handle the odd. Like if I call you up and say, hey, I've got an apartment complex that needs insurance, you're like, we're on it. Yep, it's great. So many different insurance companies have very specific things that they can do and not do. And you guys you kind of handle it all, really, almost.
We have a large capacity for personal lines. We have a large capacity for large commercial and small commercial. And we do group health benefits.
Wow, even health. Wow, that I did not know.
Yeah, we do life health annuities, and then we also do workers' comp, employee benefits. So if you own a business and your employees need health benefits, we definitely have that capability as well.
See, learn something new every single time I have somebody on here. That's awesome. Okay, but you specialized in one specific area. So where do you specialize?
So I am a personal lines advisor. So I come in where it's your home, it's your auto, personal, or excess umbrella. Also going to be for your camper, RV, and any of those fun toys.
Ooh, okay.
Also boat. Those are always fun here.
Yes, they are. They absolutely don't even get me started because we go out on boat, but I rent instead of...
Hey, some people like to have it rented.
I know. I don't want to have to clean it, maintain it, put parts on it, whatever. But I still enjoy going out on the boat once in a while. Plus, they put it in the water for you. I don't have to deal with the trailer
You like
thing.
the concierge service.
I do. I don't even have to gas the thing up. It's fantastic. All right. So a lot of people have been asking. Let's go over this first. A lot of people have been asking if they're going to move to Florida, are they going to be able to get insurance? Because they're worried they're not going to get homeowners insurance. It's absolutely not going to happen.
So if you move to Florida, we can definitely find you insurance.
Yay! Okay, so what's the issue?
So there's going to be specifically for Ocala, because I write in all 50 states.
Oh, wow.
So the risk is going to vary, where California has a lot of fires. They'll have flooding, Oklahoma, in that area, they have tornadoes. So every geographical area has specific risk. So the risk here is going to be hurricanes and wind and flood.
Even in Ocala.
Even in Ocala, we are still rated on catastrophic rate. Even though we are actually number one here in Ocala for not making claims.
That's what I see. Right. I was like, we really don't get those. We'll get some wind damage, but it's mostly the trees, which if I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. Freaking keep the trees away from your house.
Yes. Please do.
Please.
Call an arborist.
Oh my God. Anyway. All right. So staying away from that. What is the difference though? There are some people that I loved working with in the past that were, in insurance and we'll say, maybe not schmarmers or wherever that maybe left us up high and dry in the state of Florida. What's the difference between one of the agents like that and one of the companies like yours?
So being an independent broker, I work for the client. I do not work for the carrier. So I work with over 72 plus carriers. So I have a full extent of the market that is at my client's disposal. So that means I'm going to be able to negotiate terms. I'm going to be able to find you more than one carrier that's going to take on your risk. And above all things is with me not working for the carrier, I also do not have to agree with them at any point in the scenario. So if it does not benefit you as the client, we move on to a different carrier that will.
72 different carriers? That's a lot of carriers to try and remember all of their different, you know, what they accept, what they don't accept. I mean, you guys must have a pretty substantial computer system or software system. I mean, there's no way you can keep all that in your head.
Well, we have a team of people. When our client gets onboarded, we have all hands on deck, where either it's when you're intaking and we're doing your proposals and executive summaries, or it's at your renewal. We have account managers, we have service people that are dedicated to your account. You have, I'm what's called a personal lines advisor. So I'm in here to find your initial point of intake. I'm here to help you at every renewal. But we also have people on the team that's dedicated to you to be able to help you throughout the year. You have that auto that you need to add to your, you know, your auto program. If you have questions about a claim, which brings up a really good point. As a broker, you can call me and ask all of the questions that your heart desires. Because if you would call the carrier, sometimes that does ping you. And I think a lot of people have not discussed that enough.
I have seen that. I have personally seen that where we were going to go to a sale and we were going towards closing or trying to, and the insurance flagged the buyer saying that there was a claim on the house. Well, there was never a claim on the house because the house itself had been owned by a builder, and a little bit, it was like a tree limb fell just on the corner of the roof. And he's like, he called his insurance company just to ask a question about filing a claim. And apparently they logged it in the system, and then it got flagged years later. This was like 4 years later.
And no one knows to combat that because in their mind, they've never made a claim.
No.
They've never, you know, had any payment involved. So they've never made a claim in their mind.
No, he was like, I never had a claim on this. He says, I am a GC. I've got several GCs working under me. He's like, I could build this house from the ground up. We just went ahead and repaired it. And, you know, it was all taken care of. I never made a claim. And I was like, well, I hate to tell you, but insurance knows about it and they've got a ding on the house, basically. It was very weird. I did not know that.
I call them the imaginary claims, personally.
Oh, that's a good name for it.
But I had one client, her husband decided to put very, very cold water in the heat of summer on his windshield and cracked the entire front of the windshield. So she called me immediately and she's like, you told me to never call the carrier and always call you. And I was like, yes, ma'am. Perfect idea. So we ended up discussing what her deductibles were in her auto policy. And it was only going to cost $200 for her to replace her windshield on the car. Her deductibles were $500. It did not really benefit her to hinder the integrity of her personal auto policy if she were to make that claim. They were not going to pay it out. And then it was going to be a ding on her insurance score.
Well, since you're mentioning cars, I have seen that there are quite a few, you know, I'm on all these Facebook groups and stuff like that, and I own several of them. And so I kind of, you know, check out all the conversations and stuff. And one of the things that are mentioning is how the car insurance is going up exponentially this year. And nobody can figure out why or what's going on. And I mean, I think it has something to do with the hurricanes that happened down in South Florida, and we're just kind of getting the residual nonsense, but I don't know for sure. Like, what's going on?
So, yes. So the whole reason as to why the auto market has shifted so dramatically and also had such an increasing rate is going to be because it's been CAT rated. So catastrophic rate is going to be usually what was on homeowners. So homeowners had it for, you know, the flooding, the fire, tornadoes. They had a certain amount of risk, which premium allocated for that for those catastrophic rates. Auto has never been rated on catastrophic before.
Which is weird because, like, I know Texas, they have like hail damage like all the time. I was raised in Texas. I mean, it was all the time you have hail damage on cars. So they don't have it either, or is it just Florida that's not had it?
No, it's across the board. The
Really?
U.S. as a whole has now changed how they view auto. So that is why across America as a whole, you are seeing these premiums increase across the board. Everybody is feeling this sting.
Oh, okay. So it's not just Florida and it's not just Ocala.
We're not getting singled out today.
Okay, good. Good. I was sitting there thinking, what do you mean we're not? What's with the what? So Is it weird that I feel better that it's everybody?
Yeah, I mean, I think if everybody knows that they're taking the sting and it's not just us individually, I think it makes us everybody feel a little better. But
Yeah.
there's ways to kind of mitigate that risk.
Okay.
So, like we talked about insurance scores. Insurance scores always equate to credit scores. The more you ding it, because you're trying to use insurance as a warranty and not in a program for use, it is going to hinder you long term. The integrity of the policy is not going to work the way you would like it to. So also on auto, a lot of people, they're not taking the time to look at liability limits. You need to look at it in the sense of, why is this product not performing the way I want it to? Has someone talked to you about setting it up the way it should be set up to help you when you need that claim status to go through?
Oddly enough, my husband and I were just having this discussion about our auto insurance because we really haven't looked at it for years. I know that's like just opening me up to have a conversation later. I know this is what this is. But we've had, the same policy basically since we were married, and we combined everything. And since then we've had, one kid is currently with her driver's permit. We got another one in college that's still on our insurance and stuff. And I'm like,
Oof.
we should make, and of course we have
that
ours.
Premium beatdown must be real right now.
Oh, it's painful. It's painful. I'm like, we should probably maybe look at this before so-and-so gets her little license over there. But looking at our needs today, they have changed significantly since when we started it. And we have the liability for business and stuff just in case. In the very rare option where we have like a buyer in our car or something like that, we have ours for commercial use, just in case. Any of you realtors out there, you better have insurance for commercial use if you are driving people in your vehicle. Just saying, okay? Because you can definitely get yourself into some trouble if you are using it commercially and you do not have that. Just my own personal experience from what I've seen.
Very good to have it though.
Yes, it is. Yeah, some people do not realize that there is a vast difference, and that realtors are actually, it's a business.
It is.
It is a business.
There's so many people who have businesses like that. It's not the old brick and mortar. I go in at 9, I close the store at 5, and
yeah, right.
There's so many different ways that people have been branching out, being entrepreneurs. So especially when it comes to the auto capacity, it's, I always like to make this joke with my clients, and I said, insurance is an imaginary product.
Is it?
It really is. You just, basically, it's pieces of paper. But I always say that I was like, if I could give a trophy to all of my clients, that way I'd be like, oh, look how pretty this is. And look what I pay for every year. And that way it can be hung up in the home and say like, this is what I pay for. Because at the end of the day, it's just making sure that those dominoes are falling into place. Right. And it's the same thing like with your business and your personal. A lot of times people have very unique needs. And that is a really good point to bring up, that I do not believe that insurance is a one-size-fit-all product.
It can't be.
The digital age we live in, a lot of people just want to go and Google something online. They want to go ahead and get everything done in less than 30 minutes and hope that that insurance is the one for them.
You mean 15 minutes or less?
Oh, I mean,
You're not allowed to say it, but I can. Yes. So you're right, though. I mean, just signing up for insurance, it's when you go into one of those larger companies that only do that one specific kind of insurance, you kind of get what you get, and there's really no way to compare very easily without going through 45 minutes of paperwork every single time over and over and over again through each company. It's very, very difficult to do that, and most people aren't going to go through the hassle. But
no, because that's a lot of clients nowadays, whether it's a business owner, a small family, a single individual, a lot of people, we do not have time anymore, to go to each individual carrier. And that's where, if you're going to someone like, 15 minutes or less, they only have so many products because they work for the carrier. That's the difference between an insurance agent and a broker. They're only going to push the products that their carrier has on the docket. Where again, 72 plus carriers, it's whichever one that makes me happiest and which one makes the client in the best situation.
Right.
Because I think a lot of times, you know, when you work for the carrier, you don't really get the avenue to say no. So when you have a client that has a very specific risk, especially in Ocala, everyone has a very specific risk.
Yeah.
You know, like I had that one client, like we were talking about earlier, you know, he had over 100 acres, 11 horses, a high value home. It's about having that conversation with underwriting until they either understand the risk or, you know, we push for that second and third opinion to get that yes for them. You know, I like going to bat for my clients. That way I know they're getting the best option available.
It sounds like you enjoy doing that.
I love my job.
Yeah, I love the
I love
negotiation portion of the contracts and stuff. I know some of the newer agents kind of like shy away with it, and I love it. That's my favorite part.
Because I'm like, they're going to get like, and this is flat out. I ask my client, what is it that you really want?
Yes.
What is it that you really, really want? And I will make sure I get it for you. Point blank.
That's basically the same. It's, you know, okay, exactly what are the parameters? And then I'm going to negotiate my guts out, and I'm going to get this. So just let me know where your high and your low is, and what's on the table, and then I'm going to play for you. And it's just so fun.
It's so much fun because I'm like, I have like, so I also deal in auto collections and auto specialty. So I have one client who just this weekend purchased a vehicle, and he was like, I would like it to be guaranteed value of $250,000. And I'm like, yes, sir.
That's quite the car.
Very, very high performance engine underneath that hood.
Okay.
Lots of specialty parts. So we, you know, started talking with underwriting. They wanted to give me only $100,000, and I was like, absolutely not. Let's have this conversation one more time. So
less than half what he wanted.
Yes. So we ended up going back and forth, and I just told underwriting, I was like, I have all the receipts for the engines. You know, this is going to be a little bit complicated, but for any of my engine heads out there, it was a 1960 Super 88. And then we did an LS3 swap in it. And then we did a whole lot of specialty parts and innards and everything else. So we did lots of things to this vehicle.
You lost me at engines, plural. I was like, there's more than one?
Oh, no, there's just one.
Okay. I was like, wait, what?
I can say that again.
Like, what is this vehicle?
Sorry.
It's okay.
I can say it all over.
That's okay. That's okay. No, somebody out there is going to go, wow. Everybody else is going to go, huh?
Yeah.
But those that know. So, yeah. Okay, they're probably like, only 250,000. You're good.
Yeah. I was like, I get so excited talking about it. I'm just like, yeah.
Okay, what is white glove service?
So white glove service that I demand is like on board for every client is wholeheartedly is that like when you have an inspection in your home, I'm going to that inspection.
Really?
I will go to every single inspection, especially here. I have clients that are in Maitland. I have clients that are in Boca. I have clients that are here local to Ocala, Gainesville. I've gone to every inspection for my clients.
Really?
If we have some clients who are more on the high net worth side, not to say that they don't know what they're doing. I am there to make sure that they are doing it spot on. A client, you know, invested time, money, materials to get marble imported, you know, from Italy. Or they have a whole different subsection of their house that's like a movie theater. And, you know, that's a lot of specialty parts that go into that. And it's a lot of time and consideration the client picked those parts out. So I make sure that is evaluated on what's called replacement cost. So that is if I always like to make the analogy that if I stuck a match in your house and it burned to the ground, what would it cost for me to get you in the new house tomorrow?
Exactly that same
house. I want to do a complete indemnify of your home. So what's going to take to get to that part?
Yeah, that does bring up a pretty interesting topic because a lot of the houses, you know, they were purchased, let's say, for example, a small apartment building like a quad or whatever. Let's say that it was purchased for $100,000 back during the recession. And we've moved on and they've had the same insurance policy. And now if something were to happen to that building, what's it actually insured for? Because the replacement cost would have to be exponentially more than what it was.
Oh, yes.
There's no way they could get that same building for that same price. So what exactly happens with the insurance coverage? Do they have to go and contact you each time, or what do they need to do?
So if you have the right agent, like other things we had talked about earlier, is that it should be a continuous conversation as the client is growing, as the client is maybe, I want to downsize, I want to move, I want to, I'm going to do different things. People do not stay stagnant that long as much as people like to think that they do.
Yeah.
There should be constantly a conversation of having that executive review. It's like, hey, at your renewal, we need to discuss, did you buy a new car this year? Do you plan on having kids soon? Are you planning on retiring? Those are big conversations that we should have a pulse point on, because I want to make sure all of your policies are reflecting on your short-term goals and your long-term goals.
It's so interesting. The way that you are talking about this is so incredibly similar to how we do our real estate business. It's so in line, because normally when we talk to an investor, that's the first thing. Before we go and talk about what kind of property you want, we more want to find out what kind of investor they are and what kind of plans they have and what their exit strategy is. Because it's a completely different property or properties I'm going to show somebody that's wanting to go for maybe 3 to 5 years versus somebody that's 10 to 20.
Yes.
I mean, there's just no way that it would be the same property.
And that's why it's not a one size fits all. They may have one person who, oh, I'm going to buy a duplex, I'm going to rent out the other side, or I want a single family home, but I want lots of acres because I don't want any neighbors. Yep. Everybody's very particular on how they want things done,
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like taking the time to really get to know your clients, and I always call it, like the nitty gritty, and getting that conversation going, because that way, at the end of the day, that policies reflect it in what you're trying to accomplish, whether it be, a 5-year goal, 10-year goal,
or more.
Yeah. There's some people who want to pay off their house super fast. And there's some people who, they'll take that 30-year mortgage. And at that point, you're making a strategic move because you're constantly growing with that client.
Absolutely.
You're making it adjustable. It should be tailored to them, customizable.
Absolutely. It's just, so many people are like, I want my forever home. This is going to be my forever home. It's not. Statistically, you're in the house from 2 to 5 years. That's it. That is it. So even if you build it, you're still not going to be in there for 30 years. I have yet to see somebody in their house for 30 years or even the whole duration. I've seen 10 and 20 years, but their needs change.
It does.
Drastically. So they're like, oh, this is my forever home. And their kids are toddlers. Well, what happens when they don't need a 4 or 5 bedroom home anymore? And it's
always
just
a downside.
Them. And then they're like, this is ridiculous. I'm cleaning 3 bathrooms every week, Mm-hmm. It's like, no. So it's more your home for now. What is it for this phase of your life? And it seems to work a lot better going phase by phase with people, at least for us. So it sounds like it's very similar even in the insurance.
Oh, yeah. I think a lot of times, and then what I'm finding, especially doing executive reviews with clients, is that there's so many gaps in coverages.
Yes, there are.
Loads of gaps in coverages, and they're just, sitting there because they've never gone through their policy. They've never had an executive review. They've never had all of their assets looked at, and I'm like, oh, you have liability issues here. You have your home underinsured by X amount of dollars, which I've been seeing a lot lately. That's not where you want to save premium at, people.
No. There are some things you save money at, and there are some things you really don't skimp on. For me, one of the things that so I saw a horrible thing several years back when we had a little bit of a hurricane. It wasn't like full force, but we still had some issues from, I think it was Maria, maybe? I don't remember. It was just a lot of rain, and of course trees came down. So it wasn't like necessarily the houses were damaged because of high force winds. It was just, if you were in an area with a whole slew of trees or a really low lying area, you were going to have some problems. So there was a tenant, not one of ours. This was a different person. But there was a tenant that had renter's insurance, but I guess never really looked into the policy, just felt she had renter's insurance and she was covered. And unfortunately, the house flooded while she was out of town. And it flooded with city sewage. So, yeah. So, it was not anything pretty. What was interesting, she had a grand piano, oriental rugs, all this stuff. She came back because she had left because this hurricane was coming. So, she came back about a week later. And of course, the homeowners had insurance for their house. And she went to make a claim on her tenant insurance, and flooding was not covered. And ever since then, I'm going, I'm gonna have flood insurance. I don't live in a low-lying area. I don't have trees anywhere near my house, but I want to be able to sleep at night. And flooding doesn't necessarily just come from rain outside the house. So what about people looking at flooding insurance or flood insurance? Because it is expensive. It is a lot more expensive.
In some areas, it's more expensive than others.
So for those that are like, well, do I need flood insurance?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
Without a doubt.
Just get it. Just get it.
I always do a proposal even if it's not asked. Because
Really?
I think a lot of people, they'll think it's like, oh, I have to, take off a kidney to be able to afford flood insurance.
It's not that bad.
It's not that horrible to where, you're just like, oh, I have to sacrifice my new car.
Yeah, it was, I think ours was about $800 a year. I don't know what it is right now. I'm sorry. But I think
that's
it was
about usually what Marion County is.
Yeah, it was about $800 a year. And I looked at it and I thought about it and I thought, I will sleep better for $800 a year. For me, it's worth it. Because I never want to worry about all of that. I want to say, cleanse by fire, I'm out. I am not touching anything in there. I'm going to salvage a few pictures off the wall and I'm done. You can have it. I'm not doing that.
That's the way a lot of people look at it. Ooh. But, there's a lot of different types of flood.
Yes. Yes,
so there's not, I think everybody thinks it's just this one product that everyone uses across the board. It's very customizable. Not. There's, where we have with Brown & Brown, we use a lot of Right Flood. So we have a subsidiary that's Right Flood, which we use them a lot, but we also have access to other flood in the market. So there's going to be what's called private flood. So private flood is going to have significant premium relief, and it's not going to have that such high cost value that if you're not in a flooded zone, that's where I would stick someone, is definitely going to be a private flood, because that's where they're going to benefit the most. You're going to get the coverages you need. And then also you can play with that because you don't have to go at the 250 marker. There is flood coverages that exceed the 250.
Yeah, I know when people ask me about it, I am not really sure what to say as far as that. I normally just go with, I have it. Because water doesn't always come from outside.
Flood cannot be considered just from a hurricane.
No.
And there's a lot of damage and claims that are being used for flood that are outside hurricane season. And that is another reason why it is getting so costly, is because the claims are being made outside of hurricane season with those weather systems that are coming in stronger and stronger each year.
Yeah, we had
even
one
outside
recently.
Of Florida.
Yeah.
Those claims are coming in even outside of hurricane season. So it's not where the hurricanes are the determining factor.
Okay. So just prove me right. How often do you see trees falling on something, some kind of structure or car in Marion County?
There's always trees.
There's always trees.
There's always a tree.
Seriously, cut the trees back away from your houses and cars, people. I don't know what it is.
Everybody should get a lawn guy. Or a tree guy.
A tree guy.
Somebody should have a guy that helps you with your trees.
I have a guy. Okay, call me if you need my guy, because seriously. We have a lot of those things called water oaks here, and everybody thinks they're a live oak and they're going to be there for hundreds of years. No, they have a life expectancy of 30 years and then they're going to fall on your house. So, they fill with water. That's why they're called water
oaks.
They're hollow inside. They're beautiful trees. They look amazing. Cut them down. Just cut. So
I do what she said. Just cut them down.
Get a tree guy. They will come out and they'll be like, that's a water oak. You don't want that. So they're very pretty. But but plant something else instead, and have a live oak tree or something that will be there for generations. But those other trees need to, especially we get junk trees that plant themselves right up against the house because the seeds kind of blow to your house. And then, and if you don't get rid of them right away, then you can have foundation issues and plumbing issues.
And you do not want that.
No. So all sorts of fun stuff like that. But if you do that proper maintenance ahead of time, then you do not have to call and make a claim, which makes everybody's life fantastic. So yeah. All right. So
but talking about claims,
yes,
quickly.
Absolutely.
So that's a difference also with Brown and Brown. So a lot of people, if you're working with someone that is an insurance agent, we've talked about that they work for the carrier themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of hands off when it comes to claims.
They do.
Because they work for the carrier and they're waiting on adjusters and this, that, and the third. I do not work for the carriers. I work for you. So I'm going to go step by step with you through the claims process, me and my team, and we make sure everything is handled very appropriately.
Ooh, that's pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
That really is pretty amazing.
So it's not where, and this is how I look at it, yes, insurance carriers use a lot of lingo, but so can we.
Yes.
So you're not going to be alone in that situation where you're filing that claim on your home. That's your sanctuary. It's during those times, it's going to be very chaotic. You're not going to know the questions to ask. You're not going to know the process of how that's going to go, and especially we know what's in your policy. We're going to be able to dictate how this process is going to go down and make sure that they are allocating the time and resources to go through that claim process with you, because we will make sure that they do.
And it's kind of, you're hitting somebody, when they're turning in a claim, they've been through something. They're feeling very vulnerable.
The worst of the worst.
Right? Especially when it's their home. I can't even imagine coming in and my house being damaged in any way, shape, or form. I would feel so alone, so vulnerable with something like that. And then to have to face putting in a claim and an adjuster that's working for the insurance company, it just... You're going to do something weird. They're going to put something in wrong. It's just going to be
It makes
difficult.
you feel isolated and alone, and something that you should have a team. I always like to say that everybody should have their own personal board of directors. That's
true.
You have your real estate agent.
Mm-hmm.
You have, your CPAs. You have your attorneys. You have all the people who, make sure you fine tune your life. That's there for advisement.
Your people.
Yes. I would love to be on someone's board of directors for them personally. That way I am there to help them through all of those things. Insurance is never going to go away. You're constantly going to be either trying to do risk management and trying to get where you're not in a position to make a claim, but you also are going to have those situations where that claim may come and you need someone in your corner when they're going to happen. All
right. So since we're going through the whole gamut, okay. Let's go into some other topics.
Oh, yes.
I'm like, it's stump the broker time. It's fun. Okay, so one thing that has changed that I have seen is we have that whole property management division. So we work with a lot of tenants and investors and stuff. But one thing I've seen is that we are now able to require the tenants to have renter's insurance.
Yes.
Which is very different. Before we could highly recommend, and then none of them would do it. It would be like 1 out of 100. We're like, whoa, one did it. But we can now require that, which we do.
Mm-hmm.
But what's changing in the world of tenant insurance?
So this is all going to be on liability and the risk management.
Mm-hmm.
So to put it, just simply put, it's who is responsible for what. And when you're going to get into a lot of litigation from previous years of who is responsible for what claim, like you said, your friend with the piano, who was responsible for that if it was not formally pushed on her to have renter's insurance? Does she have a claim to say, well, no one told me this? And a lot of times it was just done with a simple handshake. That's not how the world works. Florida, especially for auto, is the number 1 litigious state in America. So right now, with a lot of legislative, going back and forth, it is the ability to go ahead and form those policies the way the insured wants it to be done. So if you have a property manager or you have someone who owns the property, that could be within the policy terms that they have to have a renter who has renter's insurance in there.
Right. Which is how we've seen it change within the last couple of years. But one thing I have noticed that tenants do not realize is sometimes the tenant insurance that they sign up for does not cover their personal property. It's just liability for the owner.
People are getting very confused with that. We've been having, conversations, well, because we get people who are real estate investors. So they'll have a whole portfolio of so many, and we'll go ahead and write something out for their tenants. That way it's very clear and concise. This is going to be a policy, and this is a quote for you to have just liability, which everyone should have. Or this is a quote that you have liability, but also how much is it going to be for, roughly what a renter is going to have as far as contents.
Right.
So just with that being said, I always tell people the good rule of thumb is, I said, just look around your house and take a lot of photos. This is something that I think a lot of insurance agents maybe don't say as much as they should, is go ahead, once you're settled, you have that good cleaning day at your house, and take all the photos of all your clothes in your closet, your TVs on the walls, or where they ever may be, what the bedrooms look like. That way you have a clear picture of all the content in your home. That way, that's just a good hack of saying, or good hint to say that, yes, I'm insuring my home for this amount, and it's more of a blanket policy of, I have $80,000 worth of goods in my home. But you have those pictures to support that. I have an 80-inch screen TV, I have a PlayStation 5, you have a bedroom set.
I'm sitting there looking, I'm just thinking, like, doing inventory right now in my head of just my closet alone, and I'm like, oh my goodness, my luggage is in there, and my shoes are in there, my clothes are in there. Like, to try and replace just my closet alone, it's mind-boggling. It really
You gotta
is.
shop and have it too.
Yeah, don't tell that to my husband. It's kind of a point. Yes, it's all right. It's okay. I like secondhand, so it works out well.
Yeah. But
yeah,
it's people, a lot of times they don't realize how much it's going to cost, especially when you have a normal family of 4 and you have school kids. So you have the school clothes, the regular clothes, the shoes, all the books. Mom and dad, they both work. They have a work wardrobe, and then we all have those nice, lounge pants we wear at home.
Hey, I love my pajama pants. Okay,
yes.
those things are fantastic.
Super comfy.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's all, when you're looking at it as, I've built this life and all the contents in my house over a course of 10 or so years. It didn't cost you that much, but a little bit over time. But when you have to replace it overnight because of a house fire or a flood incident, it looks staggering. So I always tell homeowners and renters, one and the same, go ahead and take those photos. That way you're going to have that physical evidence that you have what you have in your home.
Yeah.
That way it's kind of safeguarding you from having that issue. If somebody, or really the insurance carriers, to say, hey, how do we justify this policy price? This is here. I have a grand piano in my home. I have 2 large leather, love seats, or whatever the amount is. That way you have that as kind of safeguard for you to, if it ever is needed, you have that.
Yeah.
That's being more proactive than to be reactive, because when you're going to be reactive and the claim goes through and you don't have any pictures, it's a little too late.
And that's only going to take, if you're taking pictures or video, even, especially video, that's only going to take 10-15 minutes of your life.
Oh, yeah.
Can you imagine, though, how much it actually would save people over, like, just for the claim itself? You can just review the video, scribble the stuff down, you're good to go.
Oh, yeah.
That's amazing.
Because you've already taken the inventory.
Yes.
Even if you're not, really having the time to do so, you just be like, oh, I forgot about that end table and all this other things that you don't think about when it costs to replace everything in your home.
Right. So that is definitely something that we've seen changing considerably, is that
very much so.
Tenant insurance. So, all right. So what about buyers? I know we're like talking so much.
Girl,
I'm so sorry.
you can talk to me for like 2 hours. I'm here for it.
Awesome.
I'm
all
here
right.
for it.
So what about buyers? If you had advice for somebody that is coming from another state, they do not know how Florida houses are really built, aside from, the videos I share.
Smart people.
But let's say they are coming down and they are shopping around for houses and they're shopping around for insurance. What steps would you say?
So the big markers I would look at when you're looking for houses right now, it's going to be how updated is it. You know, some of these homes now, as well as they've been built to withstand things, guidelines are dictating that they're still old. So it's going to be the plumbing, it's going to be the electric, it's going to be the roof. The roof and the hot water heater are now the two hot topics when it comes to guidelines and underwriting.
What is up with the water heaters? Because seriously,
it's the hot water heater. If 15 years or older, they do not want to have a conversation with you at all.
Thankfully, it's fairly inexpensive to replace a water heater. But seriously, what on... If it fails, go replace. I've never had a major issue with the water.
So worried that they're gonna go, you know, and either leak all over the house, go kaboom. And underwriting's mind, they're all like a sand pit.
Okay.
You know, in cartoons, I feel like that's just like, I was like, it's inevitable doom. It never happens. It never comes.
Yes.
It never
They're
comes.
Like, oh, you have to have the high pressure spout going out this way. And it's like, I've never seen that happen ever. And I've been like, I've literally managed thousands of houses at this point over nearly 2 decades. It's never happened.
But they swear it will.
It will happen someday, and something bad is going to happen. So water heaters are getting tossed out, basically, even if they're still functional. It's very annoying to me.
Back to the future version of guidelines, but we still have to play by some rules.
You do have to. So, and they have, I don't know, it's like but I can't say it's like a bucket.
Pan?
Yeah, pan. Thank you. It's
Yes.
like the bucket underneath. Yeah.
But it's the one to safeguard if the water were to ever leak, even though they stay empty every day.
Okay. Also in Florida, keep in mind the water heaters are normally in the garage. Okay. So like 9 out of 10 times they're in the garage. So even if they leak, it's on, and there's always a step up in the garage. So it's
still not going to really hinder the integrity of the home. But now when it comes to water damage in the home, because of especially like old piping, we've been seeing a lot of carriers, which I will say gives you a significant discount, is going to be the water shutoff systems. They've been doing phenomenally. So we have a lot of carriers that have that set up into it, and you can just basically go ahead and get that system and get that discount, and it's just all wrapped up into one.
Oh, that's fantastic.
It's phenomenal. So then basically what the system does is, let's say this happened to one of my clients. He was on vacation. He was out of the home for a week. Why
is it always when they're out of town?
Yeah, it's always when they're out of town. So it was like 4 or 5 days he was gone. A pipe had leaked and did $75,000 worth of damage. Now, had he had that system in place, as soon as it felt a leak, any leak at all, it shuts off the main water valve. Oh. So as soon as a pipe, even your toilet on the fritz, it shuts off the power to the water. So at that point, there's no leakage until someone comes and looks at it. It is astounding.
Want that on all of the houses. I want
that is claim prevention, loss prevention, and they're really incentivizing it on a lot of carriers. It's astounding.
That is amazing. I will have to admit, from all of my years of experience and the weird, crazy things that I've seen, because again, property management, I have literally seen everything. Water is by far and away the most destructive force on earth.
Oh, yes.
Especially in Florida, where we have a very Jumanji kind of atmosphere where if you turn your back on your house,
nature will take it back.
It will. It really will. Florida just takes that house right back. So if you add large quantities of water, there are problems that ensue with that. And getting them taken care of, obviously, that's first and foremost your priority. But you have to be very quick about it because then you can have other situations that the M word is a dirty word in real estate. It's mold. No, we do not like that word at all. But we have to get the water out and get everything dry as quickly. We're talking 24 hours or less, preferably. So with that kind of situation, if you're out of town or something and it's had a week to sit there,
there's no salvaging that.
No, it's toast. It is soggy toast.
And then that is also a really big ding on, like we talked about, your insurance score. That's a really big ding on your insurance score. Yeah. So you would like to mitigate that as much as possible.
Yes. I had an owner that was considering selling his house, and during the time we it was just about to go on the market. In fact, the photographer was coming to take pictures that day, and the upstairs bathroom flooded the house. And so there was water from the upstairs that went to the downstairs. So it was loads of fun. Thankfully, because we were going to be there that morning anyway, it got taken care of. It was sometime during the night. Nobody was even there. We have no idea why, but just stuff happens.
Yep.
So we were able to get it taken care of right away. But of course, there was an insurance claim. And even with us taking care of it immediately, it was a substantial claim. So I was like, it would not be in your best interest to put this house on the market. It needs to sit for several years without being sold, because it's going to have major insurance issues if you try to sell it right now, which he was fine with. It went back into property management. It's perfectly fine. As far as the house, there wasn't anything. It actually looked better than before even.
Get that facelift.
Yeah.
Usually
General contractor had fun. But so it's great. But because that ding on the insurance, I was like, I don't want to sell this house right now. It's going to be awful trying to have a buyer come in and get insurance on it.
And then also the buyer trying to get insurance. I have a lot of people, they'll have a house they may have good insurance scores, but the house has a lot of dings on it. Then we have to go to underwriting, and another big thing is going to be, all the inspections you need. If you get certain inspections on the home, it does give you discounts on your homeowner's policy. So
4-point
win mitt. So all of those, it's going to go a long way with having that discussion with underwriting, and that way we can, bring it to and say, yeah, we understand the home may be in, 1960s, maybe 1990 home, but we understand that there's been renovations. I feel like you're paying one way or the other. If you don't do the renovations, you're going to pay for it in your insurance premiums right now. If you take the time to go ahead and do the renovations, you'll see that it kind of evens out. But this is always going to be high with the insurance premiums as long as it's outdated.
Right.
This is going to be more cost effective with the longevity of a discount, because if you buy a 2023 new roof and you go ahead and do the plumbing and the HVAC and the electrical, guess what? You're going to have the longevity of that discount for a few years to come until it gets old again. Yeah. And at that point, it's someone else's problem.
Yeah. So 5 years has passed. They've already moved. But one thing I did have a question on, and I know we're just kind of going down the rabbit hole. I'm sorry, but
I'm all for that.
I love metal roofs. The new metal roofs that are out, I say new, it's been 15 years that I've seen them come into play. And at first I was like, oh no, I remember those from back in the day. They've got the ping, ping, ping every time it rains. And I don't want one of those. No, these things are fantastic and they last so much longer. And the tree debris does not beat them into oblivion like shingles do. And you don't have shingles coming off or anything because there's no shingles. It's just a metal roof. It looks clean. I love them. However, on an insurance standpoint,
that's a hot take.
What are we thinking? Good or bad?
I'll say this. When it comes to underwriting, the way that everyone's looking at it is a shingle roof is going to give you longevity of 15, 20 years. Tile roof and metal roof are going to be coming in at that 25, 30-year mark. So yes, it is more expensive. Slightly more expensive.
Just slightly.
But you're going to look at how much it's going to cost to replace a whole roof. And then if you want to do it one time for 30 years, give or take, depending on the maintenance, because everything depends on the maintenance.
If you have, tree branches falling on it.
Yep. Clear the trees. Or,
it's like our hot topic today.
It's the trees. Or it's the shingles. So and then at that point you have to replace 2 roofs in the time span of 1. So yeah, you're spending that money regardless. But I think as far as the longevity, and then you have to pay workers and everybody coming out, then do you want to live in that?
No.
Do you want to take the time to have to go?
Now, one thing I will say is I did get from an insurance company, and it's been several years, so I don't even remember, but we went to sell the house and they had not done a complete removal of the shingles. They had put the metal over top. They did a re-roof. I don't know, something like that. It was like covered. And apparently that's perfectly fine as far as permanent and everything, but the insurance company was like, I don't think so.
That's suspicious.
Yeah, so it was, I guess they call it a re-roof, but basically it was the old shingles were not removed. The metal roof went on top of the old roof.
I've never encountered that.
It is a thing.
Yeah,
it is a thing.
I've never encountered that.
So be careful with what you order, because it may have insurance implications years down the line, and you do not want to have those insurance implications for the next 30 years as you have this roof. So
this is why I'm always preaching, get at least at minimum when you're doing the homeowners, get a 4-point inspection. They're going to at least get a broad overview of what's going on with that home that you may or may not see offhanded. They're going to rigorously test the water system. They're going to look at all the electrical. They're going to see any fuddy-buddy business that's going on. You would rather know that. So I'm like, oh, I'm making that financial decision to kind of look at where I'm going with this home, what the investment is, as opposed to, I just really love this home. Now, don't get me wrong. Everybody has that house where you walk in and you're like, this is it. Doesn't matter what's wrong with it. But
that's rare anymore.
But, you know, there's some people who just, they get that, you know, that personal experience and they're going to buy the home anyways. But I always advise people to go ahead, get that 4-point, look at where the specs are of the home, if there's any improvements that are needed. That way you can allocate that into it. And also that should be something you could talk about with your broker. Hey, I'm buying this home. I'm looking into it. What's the system? Because I've also talked to clients, you know, when they're in the process of buying a home, but I've also talked to clients when they're in the process of building a home. We need to do the builder's risk on it, because you need to have insurance while you're building it. And then, you know, if we've talked about all of the systems in place that give them a lot of discounts, they're already building that into the home. So as you're, you know, doing renovations or building a home, we can go through that process with you and kind of coach you. If you're choosing this type of material, it's going to be a lot more on your premium. Or if you choose this type of material, you're going to see some premium relief and it's going to last a lot longer.
Okay, so we said metal roof over shingle, but what about frame homes versus concrete block?
Oh, concrete block all day.
Really? I really never thought that it was that much of a difference here in Ocala.
It's a huge difference in Ocala. Huge.
How?
We do not have enough fire departments here. That's the problem.
Oh.
And on top of no fire departments, we don't have enough fire hydrants.
Really? Huh. Okay.
According to guidelines.
According to guidelines.
According to guidelines.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've got, what, 1,600 square miles, give or take, in Marion County, and yeah.
If you call the county appraiser's office, as it repeats on non-end, we are the size of Rhode Island here in Marion County.
Yes, a little bit bigger, actually, than Rhode Island. But I mean, mind you, Rhode Island's pretty small, so yeah.
So small.
But yes, we are bigger than Rhode Island and smaller than Connecticut. That's how we kind of measure up as far as a county size. But yeah, I know, especially some of those rural areas, the really rural areas of Marion County. Yeah, there's not a fire department for miles.
And that's where like a lot of the like really unique risks have been coming from. It's, you know, the rural areas, because underwriting, I will, without a doubt, if I'm, you know, we use different systems and also Google about mapping out how far a fire department is from your home, how far are you from a fire hydrant. If I feel that Google's not respectively telling me there's a fire department, I will drive by in a 5-mile radius to make sure that there's not a fire hydrant or a fire department that we've missed, because we've had that where underwriting completely missed.
Yeah. The
guidelines for one particular carrier was that it had to be less than 5 miles for them to get insurance. So the one that kept coming up on Google was like 6.2 miles. It was so close, but yet so far away. Yeah. So we ended up going right by. And we ended up finding a fire department that was 2.3 miles away. And I was like, it just didn't come up on the Google Maps. So I was like, he is physically there. You know, the fire department's physically there. So we ended up finding that client, the coverage that we needed. We ended up calling underwriting. I was like, I found the fire department. We are getting this done today. Thank you.
You know, I've had that question before from insurance coverage for some of my investors. The investors are like, they're like, I have absolutely no idea. They're from another state or whatever, and they're like, I don't know where a fire, like, how do you find? And I remember looking at a website to specifically find where the fire, I think it was a county website or something. I don't remember
Yeah.
off the top. I had to do some research. Like, how am I, aside from driving over there,
Because
how am I
sometimes
supposed
they,
to know?
you know, it's not that like I
Fire
don't
hydrant.
trust Google. I'm sure Google knows all the things. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I'm like, we're going to take a ride by, because I'm like, that way I can tell my client, I've looked over every rock, everything. I know you really want this very particular carrier, because there's a difference between, you know, regular carriers and then what we have is blue chip carriers.
Oh.
So those are going to deal with like high risk, high net worth. You know, you have a client with like a $4 million house. They have a car collection.
Yeah, they don't normally rent those out. Those are more sales.
Yes.
Not my.
Yes. So it's just that, you know, those types of carriers, they're very they're more strict on the guidelines.
Right.
So we have to be very particular on where the parameters are.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You
I mean,
know?
if I were, you know, covering somebody's house for several $1 million, I would want to be pretty strict
Oh, yes.
too.
So,
I would be very, very strict, actually. So I can understand that. I can actually, I mean, that's justified, really.
oh, yeah.
Yeah. So if you wanted to give me a hassle about the water heater, then okay, you know, I can understand it. That's several $1 million of something. So, all right. How about I'm going to say one last topic, but I don't know if it's the last topic because I just
Probably
love having
not.
you in here. So
I love being here. Hey, we
So-
could do market trends every
Oh
year.
my goodness, we could have so much fun with that. So what about dog bites? That having insurance on your dogs is a thing. I kid you not. Florida is a very, very, very pet-friendly state. More so than any other state I've ever been in. But they also really love certain breeds of dogs that insurance companies don't necessarily appreciate and love as much as Floridians do. We'll say it. Is that nice? That was nice.
That's a nice way of saying it. We're saying it without saying it.
So there are there's actually a list that insurance
a whole
companies
list.
have that I've seen the list. Some they change. Like some insurance companies have one list and another. So
I will
some are on
say,
it.
like, across the board, no carrier is the same, because they look at risk differently, each company, and then also they specialize in one risk over the other. Like, somebody basically says, like, oh, this looks risky, I'm going to take this one, and I don't like this one. And the other one will say, oh, I like this risk, and I'll take this one, but I don't want the other one. So everybody kind of takes a portion of the risk plate, is what I like to say. But when it comes to dog bites, I will say make sure that you are getting the adequate liability coverages for your homeowners. If anything, I always preach, either it's called, depending on the carrier you're talking to, is going to be umbrella insurance or excess insurance. That's going to be extra liability that covers both your car, your family, and your home. And then pet insurance is definitely a real life thing. I would definitely get it if you have one of those dogs that may be on a list somewheres or a guideline sensor. So that way you're just giving yourself protection.
Yes, because
So
they also have to prove in the lawsuit that will ensue. They have to prove that it was your dog, but the issue is it's an assumption that it was your dog, and you have to prove. It's not that they have to prove it was your dog. You have to prove it wasn't your dog. So it's a whole big thing, but highly recommend if you have a dog that is big enough to do damage, please get that excess insurance, please.
Please do.
If you are the homeowner, if you're the tenant, I don't care. It doesn't matter. You're going to need to have insurance because we're a very litigious state. So we're very pet friendly, but also very litigious down here. So you don't want to be a part of that lawsuit. You don't. That's what you have insurance for.
Yes, that's why, like, in those executive reviews, I like to be very thorough. I want to get to know you and your family and your pets. That's including your pets.
Yes.
So the way I like to look at it is the way your program should be structured is everything is covered, and then you have a fine fence around it that protects you and your assets. That way, again, if the integrity of your policy is built with the intent to perform correctly, you're not going to have issues when that comes to play. I hate to say it, but there's always going to be someone who is going to make that false accusation, or there's going to have that claim that came through. even, teen drivers, a lot of these kids are not really that, dangerous on the road. But it's that 10% at fault. All your assets are in your kid's trunk. Everything you've worked for, everything you paid for. Then if you're not having those liabilities up to par, now all of your assets are up for grab. Yeah. So it's about having that long-winded conversation. But at the end of the day, if you're developing your relationship with your broker, you should find someone you really trust. I mean, by all means, you can definitely call me. But
so actually, that brings up the question again, is how do they contact you? Because I'm already sitting here going, I'm going to call you later because I think I might have a few shortages.
So, Macy McConnell, like this, I always say Macy like the store or the parade.
Yeah.
And then my number is going to be 352-387-4252.
And you're with Brown and Brown. Yes, which is a company I highly recommend. I do not have anything as far as any affiliation with them whatsoever, but I have recommended them for years with really great results for my customers for years and years. Everybody's always been very happy with their service over there. So, of course, it's somebody that I recommend, and that's why they were invited to talk to you today, because they are fantastic over there. So, absolutely love it. All right. Is there anything else that you want to share?
I know you said a lot of times with the, I don't know if we talked about that, about with your investors. A lot of times with the portfolios, have you find there's been difficulty finding coverage for both, like if there's a personal name or an LLC or anything like that?
Oh yeah, it's a pain in the neck.
So a lot of times what we've kind of come up with a system when it comes to that, because we take on, we take on people who are just, the small two-person household, single-person household to,
bigger.
Very much bigger. But when it comes to investors, we've kind of come up with a system that where whatever benefits them. Like sometimes, if you have it in a personal name, we can help you set up an LLC, and we can put it in small commercial. If you have enough properties, we can look at big commercial. But a lot of times we can tinker and toy with that portfolio to be able to get it to where you want it.
I definitely have somebody to send to you. Yeah, but no, it's different, especially when you're dealing with landlord, residential landlords, because technically it's residential, but it's really not. That's their investment portfolio. So it's essentially a business. So to have that commercial versus residential, where exactly does it fall? What kind of liability do you need? What kind of insurance company or coverage do you need? It's a little different.
It gets really painstaking because a lot of people, some people haven't set up that LLC, or they'll have 5 or 7 LLCs because they only have so many investment properties in each one. That's still not an issue when we're developing a full program for someone who has that multitude of investments. Doesn't matter if it's only 2 or 25. There's really no limit when we're developing which ones need to be in a personal name, which one needs to be in small commercial or big commercial. That way we have all the departments and the backing to get that done. So that's just a simple phone call. We can do that executive review.
And it is very different. It has different rules when you're going into landlord investor kind of situation. So for us, as soon as we know that an investor is purchasing, let's say, a new construction property or something like that, and they're going to put it into property management, we get their contract right away, like immediately before they even own the property, so that we start working on it. Because with the insurance companies, we're on a timeline. It can't sit vacant. Sometimes it has to be rented within 30 days. Because bad things happen to vacant properties.
All those guidelines.
Nobody wants to have a vacant property sitting there. So we have literally, as soon as they sign on the dotted line, our clock is ticking, and they could lose their insurance coverage if we don't, hurry up. So I know some investors call up and they're just like, oh, how long does it take you to get a tenant? And we're like, oh, no. We're going to be, marketing it before you even have the keys. Okay. Because we have to, if we have actually had tenants move in the day of closing. We had one tenant that had to wait a week to move in because they couldn't close for like a week. There was a delay in the closing. But we like to have the tenants like day of.
Sometimes it has to happen that way. It's very preventative, not reactive.
Yes.
Yeah. Because in reactive, you get a lapse, and no one wants a lapse.
No. And again, bad things happen. It's always when somebody's out of town or it's vacant and sitting there. Yeah, no.
Someone's house sitting in the plants.
Yeah.
It's always then.
All right. So you personally, just a question. If we can get personal for a second.
Yes.
neither of one of these we would want to happen. But if the worst happens, would you prefer a fire or a flood in your house?
Oh, that's so devastating.
I know, right? I've thought about this question so much.
Honestly.
I know, right?
And then I look at it in the risk management sense. If I've coached my client well enough, they would have the water shut-off valve in the house, so they wouldn't have a water claim.
Oh, that's good. Oh,
and then also, if I've coached my client really well, they would have sprinklers in their house, and then there wouldn't be a fire.
Okay.
Because especially being with the rural areas that we have, there are incentives for you to have some type of water device to either shut it off, that way you're not having that water claim, or to disperse water, that way you're not having that fire claim. So in my ideal world for that question,
it's a horrible question, isn't it?
My client would have been prepared.
So bad. All right. With that in mind, thank you so much, Macy.
Yes.
I loved it that you came in here. I know we're sitting here laughing and stuff about insurance of all things, but you just made it so simple and easy for everyone to understand. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Greatly appreciate you coming in. We would love to have you come back anytime.
Yes, we could do market trends for 2024.
Ooh, that sounds like fun, actually.
Move with the rhythm, shake it up, stop when the clock hits 13. Sing